Hello everyone, Brachiosaurus2D7 here, and today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different, but also kind of the same thing I've done with the revolver ranking. I'm actually going to be talking about the different semi-auto blasters and which one is the best. So, as you know, there are many different types of semi-auto blasters, but I'm specifically covering the more core semi-auto blasters, stuff like the Strife, or maybe the Spectrum or the Raven, stuff like that, and basically comparing which one is the best. I have quite a few different blasters here, and I want to analyze and just talk about their different advantages and weaknesses, or if they really are important at all. So, let's get started. First off, I want to talk about a blaster that isn't talked about a lot in the hobby, and it's actually kind of good. Even though it doesn't really have any advantage over some of these other blasters, it's still a really good blaster, and I think people don't give it enough recognition. The Rebel Mech is a really unique blaster because it doesn't offer anything really new, but it has a pretty decent shell and a good grip for a Busby blaster. It's one of Busby's best blasters, and I really like that. It has a very snappy trigger, and the performance is amazing on this blaster as well. It has a very good shell quality for what it is, and it just is really decent. The only complaint is maybe the magazine release is not in a good place at all. It's a very awkward and weird place. You can't really grab the mag. You have to do it like the other hand. It gets weird, but it's still an amazing little blaster. It's a great hip fire blaster. And, I mean, it doesn't really have anything that stands out, but I think it's a pretty cool blaster that doesn't get enough recognition because it is actually very decent, and I really just like how it is. It has a really neat vibe to it. It's comfortable. It feels more like a hip, like a hip fire blaster, something you would use as more of a secondary, even though it doesn't really have any sling attachments anywhere. I just find it a really decent blaster, and it actually came with a drum, which is really neat. Alright, it's time to get into an actual Nerf blaster, and that will be the Modulus ECS10. This is a very suntan ECS10, but it is still an amazing blaster for quite a few reasons that a lot of people don't really understand. First off, it's highly customizable. It has about the same mod potential as a Strife. I mean, you can rewire it, add lipos, all that stuff. And some people will do like a triple stage flywheel cage or whatever, and this is a perfect blaster for that. So really, it has a great complete package. It's not as compact as the Strife, it's a little bit longer, but the longer barrel allows for more accuracy. It actually has a higher performance over the Strife, which I really like. One thing though that is kind of upsetting is the grip is not as comfortable as it could be. Now it's very, very comfortable compared to a lot of other skeleton grips, but it still can be somewhat uncomfortable. In my opinion, it's more comfortable than the Strife grip, but that's just me. I don't mind skeleton grips as much for some reason. I actually kind of like them, but a lot of people hate skeleton grips, and this isn't really much of a skeletonized grip, so it's not a big deal, but it can be a problem for some people. Although the main structure of the grip is still decent, you still got the front and the back that are plastic, so it doesn't really matter as far as this. It's not as much of a skeleton grip as other things, and it doesn't save a lot of space, but it is very thin, which is nice. And it, again, like I said, it performs a lot better than a stock Strife. So yeah. Alright, it's time to get into something a lot of people don't know about, and that is the Big Power 50 whatever. They have different names for this. It doesn't really have a specific name. I was actually emailing them a few months back, thinking of giving suggestions for names, but I never really thought of anything. But still, an amazing little blaster for what it is. It's a very interesting knockoff blaster because it has some advantages over the Strife, believe it or not. It has a much better grip, it has slightly better performance, the mag release is actually decent, it has enough customizability on it because it has the tack rail, stock, and barrel attachment, which are all compatible with Nerf. So the only complaint though is that the magazine reloading can be a little bit hard to get the magazine in there, but it is compatible. It's a really decent blaster. A lot of people don't talk about it. It has a much more snappy trigger, and it has better performance overall than a Strife, and it does have quite a bit of mod potential. That being said, the plastic quality is pretty decent, but it's like X-Shock quality. It's not amazing. Not as good as a Strife. So the modability could be hindered by that because it may be harder. You may risk breaking your blaster more, but it's still an amazing blaster, and it actually looks pretty decent enough. Is it better than the Strife? I don't know. It's a little bit more bulky, although it's much more slim, but like tall wise, I don't want to say tall, but it's bigger than the Strife. Although it is a very decent blaster, the grip is much better in my opinion, and it performs better. It also goes with batteries. Now, the one problem is the price is a little bit expensive. I think it's like $40, but it goes with a lot of other stuff, like a bunch of darts and a bunch of attachments and all of that. So it's not a bad blaster, but it's not that great either. It has some flaws, but the core blaster itself is actually very decent. And I really think it does compete with the Strife in some ways, but not in every way. And by the way, this is not a ranking of what I think is better or worse. I'm just analyzing different semi-auto blasters. I think it's appropriate now to bring up the Spectrum. The Spectrum has a lot of advantages over the Strife, but there is a few little problems that do hold it back. I think it's still better overall stock, but mod potential wise, it's a little bit inferior. Although this does have a lot of mod potential, it is inferior in a few ways. But let me analyze a few things about this blaster, and I'll let you draw your own conclusions. First off, it is a very, very comfortable blaster. The grip is really nice. The front here is very, very comfortable as well. A very comfortable blaster, in my opinion, more comfortable than the Strife. The trigger pull, very snappy. The rev trigger is a little bit larger than I would want, but it's not bad or annoying in any way. It has some customizability with a stock, and there's two different types of stocks that work with this blaster. The Villainator stock and, of course, the included stock. The Villainator stock is a better option for this blaster, so just letting you guys know that. The mag release is great. I really like the style of mag release, but if you're using most 18 sticks, it will be harder to do because they have a little knob that sticks out, so you kind of have to toggle it a little bit to kind of get the magazine out. Another thing is it's not as customizable, even though you do have a stock and attachment point that are both, and the attachment point's compatible with Nerf, but not the stock. And there is no barrel lug, but there is quite a bit of mod potential with this blaster. There's some cosmetic mods that really work with it. The main advantage to this blaster is that it's comfortable and it performs well out of the box for only $20. If you have $20, you got a 110 FPS blaster. You have the comfortability and performance and the overall form factor of a Strife and quite a bit of mod potential. So as far as it being a default blaster, it's not as good as the Strife, but if you want something that's high performance and you don't care about too much customizability, you just want it to be comfortable, this is definitely a good option, especially stock. In stock form, it exceeds the Strife in every way, shape, and form. It does, because it is an amazing blaster for $20. And of course, I want to talk about the Strife, which is a great blaster overall. Now, it is in my underrated blasters list, but there's a few reasons why. First off, I think the grip's not the best. You have to get, a lot of people get attachments to like fix it. It's a very default blaster, and inherently stock, when you don't add anything to it, it's not amazing. But the fact that it can be changed and it's like a very good default blaster to work on makes it a great blaster in and of itself. By itself, it's not great, but it has a lot of mod potential. It's really easy to rewire, which, again, I have rewired this blaster. Actually, my brother did 2 Strifes, I did 1 of them. But it's great because it's very customizable. Now, it doesn't have a complete package. You have to get stuff and add it to the blaster. So that is a complaint I have, because if you have to add a bunch of stuff to the blaster for it to be amazing, then maybe it's not as amazing. But it is great for something to work on or add to. If you want to add something to a blaster, if you want to work on a blaster and make it good, this is the perfect base blaster to do so. Again, I'm not a big fan of it, but I can see the appeal of it being a very good default blaster. The rewired, it's also a good compact blaster as well. It does what it needs to do at a very compact size. It's very slim, and yeah, it doesn't look the best stock form, or just bare bones Strife doesn't look the best, but it's definitely a solid blaster that has very much changed the hobby and affected it in a good way. And I definitely recommend everyone have one because it is a default blaster. So yeah. But there is one more blaster I think that exceeds the Strife in every way. It exceeds every other semi-auto blaster in every way. And a lot of people disagree with this, but I think most people will see where I'm coming from and understand perfectly why I love this blaster so much. That is the Raven. The Raven is a complete package while still being customizable. And here's a few reasons why. First off, it's a bullpup, which a lot of people say doesn't have a practical use in the Nerf hobby, but I believe it does because it condenses the space of the blaster. Where normally a stock would be, you have the magazine, and there's still a comfortable stock. The stock is very lengthy, by the way, as well. From the grip, it's a very comfortable hold. It's a very comfortable blaster overall as well. Even though it has this handguard thing here, it's still very comfortable. It gives you enough space for your hand. It has quite a bit of customizability because the stock is perfect for people who want shorter stocks or longer stocks. It's like that perfect size for a stock. It has sling mounts, which is amazing for me because I love using slings. It has a very accessible magazine release, which is also amazing. It looks awesome by itself. It doesn't need more attachments, but you can totally add a whole bunch more attachments in the front. It has everything that's needed, and even has a built-in barrel because of the bullpup system. So you have that little bit of accuracy. It's not so long that it diminishes the performance, but it keeps a little bit of accuracy there, which is nice. Overall, the Raven is a perfect blaster because of how condensed it is and the purpose it serves. And there is quite a bit of mod potential with the Raven as well. Maybe not as much as the Strife, but still a lot of mod potential there. In my opinion, the Raven is the perfect blaster. Only setback is it's very hard to obtain one that's elite. It's not too hard to obtain a green version, which is not a high-performing blaster because it's in Strife, but once you get an elite version, there's no going back. It's an amazing blaster. It performs amazingly. That being said, you can modify a green Raven to shoot really well. You can just rewire it, maybe add a LiPo or something, and it's an amazing blaster. Again, it's an elite performance blaster. You can also combine a Raven and a Strife to create the Straven, which is an amazing blaster as well because you have two battery doors that you can actually hook up and get double the voltage, which is, means more performance. So it's hard to really say which is better, but I think the Raven objectively is the best semi-auto blaster. As a default blaster, the Strife is better. I really think the Raven is the most amazing semi-auto blaster there is just because of what it has to offer in such a small, compact package. Here it is compared to the Strife. It's not much longer than the Strife. It's about the same size. And it's a very thin form factor as well. So all in all, this is an amazing blaster that people talk about but don't really understand that this is better than the Strife in many ways, as it has the full package while still offering a lot of customizability. So overall, I give the Raven as the score as the best semi-auto blaster. But as far as default goes, or for modding, I would definitely recommend the Strife. Although for basic rewiring, both of these blasters work just as well. So yeah, that is my opinion on different analyzation of every different type of semi-auto blaster. Not every single type, but the ones I have that are more of a core blaster that are magazine fed. So yeah. Anyway guys, thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.
My junk drawer. My junk drawer. So many things, I don't know what they're for, but I won't let it go. No, I will add more useless little things to my junk drawer.